He needs to help himself. I think people don't bother me with any information about Scott unless it's to the point where they really think that I need to know. And so, I don't know, it's kind of like the same scenario, like once again, like I feel helpless because I don't always know what to do because it's been so many years of trying. It's just stressful because he is my kid's father. I just want him to be like healthy and happy.
Tension inside the Kardashian family reached a boiling point when Keeping Up with the Kardashians captured another emotional chapter in the complicated history between Kourtney Kardashian and Scott Disick. What began as concern over Scott's behavior quickly spiraled into a family-wide confrontation, forcing Kim Kardashian to step in and take control of the situation. Kourtney had been working hard to create stability in her life. After years of ups and downs with Scott, she made it clear that her priority was peace, especially for the sake of their children. But Scott's unpredictable behavior once again put her in an uncomfortable spotlight. Reports of late nights, questionable decisions, and emotional outbursts started circulating within their circle, and it wasn't long before the tension became impossible to ignore. Scott has always been a polarizing figure in the family. While he shares a deep bond with the Kardashians and has been part of their inner circle for years, his struggles with responsibility and boundaries have repeatedly caused friction. This latest wave of drama felt different. Kourtney appeared emotionally drained, visibly frustrated that she kept getting tied to Scott's actions even when she wasn't directly involved. Family members began noticing the toll it was taking on her. Kourtney, known for prioritizing wellness and emotional balance, seemed overwhelmed. She didn't want to be blamed for Scott's behavior, nor did she want to constantly defend herself against situations she didn't create. The narrative that somehow linked her to Scott's choices pushed her to her limit. That's when Kim stepped in. Kim, often seen as the strategic problem solver of the family, decided enough was enough. She confronted the issue head-on, not just as a sister, but as someone determined to protect the family's image and emotional stability. Kim made it clear that Scott needed accountability. She refused to let Kourtney continue absorbing the stress of his decisions. In tense conversations, Kim expressed concern that the pattern was repeating itself. She reminded Scott that his behavior doesn't just affect him. It impacts Kourtney, their children, and the entire family dynamic. Kim's tone was firm but measured. She wasn't attacking him. She was drawing boundaries. Scott, visibly defensive at first, attempted to justify himself. He argued that he felt isolated and misunderstood, claiming that he still considered the Kardashians his family. But Kim didn't back down. She emphasized that being family comes with responsibility. If he wanted to maintain close ties, he needed to act accordingly. Behind the scenes, Kourtney struggled with conflicting emotions. Part of her felt compassion for Scott, knowing the history they shared. Another part of her felt exhausted. She had worked too hard to rebuild her sense of independence to be pulled back into chaos. Watching Kim advocate on her behalf was both relieving and emotional. The confrontation sparked intense discussions among the sisters. Khloe expressed empathy for Scott, but admitted that his actions often complicate things unnecessarily. Kendall and Kylie observed the situation more quietly, recognizing how delicate the balance was. The family has always walked a fine line between loyalty and accountability when it comes to Scott. What made this twist so shocking wasn't just the confrontation. It was Kim's unwavering stance. Historically, family members have tried to mediate gently. This time, Kim's approach signaled a shift. She wasn't willing to prioritize comfort over clarity. Viewers saw a powerful dynamic unfold, sister protecting sister, while still acknowledging complex relationships. Kim's intervention reframed the situation. Instead of Kourtney being portrayed as entangled in Scott's behavior, the focus shifted to Scott's responsibility for his own choices. As the episode progressed, Scott appeared reflective, whether out of genuine realization or pressure. he acknowledged that he needed to reassess his behavior. He admitted that he sometimes acts out when he feels disconnected from the family. But Kim reminded him that emotional struggles don't excuse harmful patterns. Meanwhile, Kourtney found her voice. In a calm yet assertive moment, she clarified that she no longer wants to be associated with drama that doesn't serve her growth. She emphasized that co-parenting requires respect, not chaos. It was a defining moment, one that showed how far she has come from earlier seasons. The ripple effects of Kim's intervention extended beyond just one argument. It reshaped how the family navigates difficult conversations. Rather than tiptoeing around sensitive topics, they demonstrated a willingness to confront them directly. Fans reacted strongly to the episode. Some praised Kim for defending her sister and demanding accountability. Others felt sympathy for Scott, pointing out his long history with the family and the emotional complexities involved. Social media buzzed with debates over loyalty, boundaries, and personal growth. At its core, the situation highlighted a universal theme: the challenge of maintaining relationships when personal growth leads people in different directions. Kourtney's evolution toward stability clashed with Scott's ongoing struggles. Kim's role became that of protector and strategist, ensuring that growth wasn't derailed by recurring patterns. The aftermath left lingering questions. Would Scott truly change? Could the family maintain closeness without enabling destructive behavior? And most importantly, would Kourtney finally experience the peace she has been seeking? One thing became clear: the dynamic had shifted. Kim's bold step signaled that the era of silent tolerance was over. The family, while united, was no longer willing to blur boundaries for the sake of tradition. The emotional fallout didn't settle after that first confrontation. Instead, it intensified. As the days passed, tension lingered beneath the surface, especially between Kourtney Kardashian and Scott Disick. What seemed like a single dramatic exchange quickly revealed deeper cracks that had never fully healed. Kourtney began pulling back even more. She avoided unnecessary communication and limited interactions strictly to co-parenting matters. For her, this wasn't about punishment, it was about protection. She had spent years riding the emotional roller coaster of Scott's highs and lows. Now, she wanted consistency. She wanted calm. Scott, however, struggled with the new distance. He wasn't used to being shut out emotionally. In private conversations, he admitted feeling replaced, not just romantically, but within the family structure. The Kardashians had always been his safety net. Family dinners, vacations, and holidays made him feel included. Now, that access felt uncertain. That shift didn't go unnoticed by Kim Kardashian. Kim observed Scott's discomfort, but remained firm. She believed that growth sometimes requires discomfort. If Scott truly valued his place in the family, he would need to earn stability rather than expect it automatically. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Kourtney opened up about how exhausting it had been to constantly defend herself against public narratives. Every time Scott made headlines for questionable behavior, her name resurfaced alongside his. It didn't matter that they were no longer together romantically. The association followed her everywhere. She expressed frustration that people still framed her as responsible for managing Scott's emotions. That burden, she explained, was no longer hers to carry. She wanted partnership and peace, not crisis control. The family gathered again for a tense but necessary discussion. This time, the focus wasn't just on Scott's actions. It was on boundaries. Kim emphasized that support does not mean enabling. Khloe added that love can exist alongside accountability. The message was unified. They care about Scott, but they refuse to excuse patterns that hurt Kourtney. Scott appeared quieter during this conversation. Instead of reacting defensively, he listened. He acknowledged that sometimes he leans on old habits when he feels insecure. The pressure of seeing Kourtney move forward triggered feelings he hadn't fully processed. But Kourtney made something crystal clear. She would not slow down her growth to protect his comfort. The dynamic between the sisters also evolved. Kim and Kourtney, who have had their own history of disagreements, found themselves unexpectedly aligned. There was a sense of solidarity that felt new. Instead of competing perspectives, there was unified strength. Privately, Kim admitted she admired Kourtney's transformation. Years ago, she might have tolerated chaos to keep peace. Now, she demanded respect. That shift inspired Kim to reflect on her own boundaries in relationships and business. The children, although shielded from most of the drama, remained the emotional priority. Both parents agreed that stability for them came first. Co-parenting conversations became more structured and less emotional. Schedules were discussed calmly. Decisions were documented. The new approach felt clinical at times, but it reduced misunderstandings. Scott began taking small steps toward rebuilding trust. He focused more on parenting responsibilities and less on social distractions. Whether driven by genuine change or fear of losing connection, his behavior started to shift subtly. The family noticed, but cautiously. Trust, after all, isn't restored overnight. Public reaction continued to pour in. Fans debated whether Scott deserved another chance or whether Kourtney had endured enough. Online discussions dissected every facial expression and every word exchanged. Yet inside the family, the priority wasn't public opinion, it was emotional health. Kourtney started embracing a quieter confidence. She stopped reacting impulsively. Instead of engaging in back-and-forth arguments, she chose measured responses. That calm energy unsettled Scott at first, but it also forced him to mature in his communication. Kim remained observant but less reactive. Having made her stance clear, she stepped back slightly, allowing Kourtney to lead her own narrative. The intervention had served its purpose. Now it was about consistency. One unexpected outcome was a deeper conversation about identity. Scott admitted that much of his self-worth had become intertwined with being part of the Kardashians. Without that constant validation, he felt unsure of himself. That vulnerability opened a rare moment of honesty. Kourtney listened, but didn't rescue him emotionally. She acknowledged his feelings without absorbing them. It was a powerful display of boundaries in action. As weeks passed, family gatherings resumed with a different tone. There was less tension, but also less illusion. Everyone understood the unspoken rule. Respect is non-negotiable. The biggest transformation, however, was internal. Kourtney no longer felt tethered to Scott's reputation. For the first time, she experienced a sense of separation that felt healthy instead of hostile. She wasn't cutting him off. She was redefining the terms. Scott, recognizing the permanence of this shift, appeared more intentional. He engaged more thoughtfully during family interactions and avoided behavior that could reignite criticism. While skepticism remained, hope quietly returned. In the end, the second wave of drama wasn't explosive. It was revealing. It showed how growth changes dynamics. It proved that stepping in, as Kim did, can create space for evolution rather than destruction. The atmosphere within the family didn't completely settle after those intense conversations. Instead, a new phase began, one defined by observation rather than confrontation. Everyone was watching to see whether Scott Disick would maintain the changes he promised, and whether Kourtney Kardashian would truly stay firm in her boundaries. For the first time in years, Kourtney seemed emotionally detached from the chaos. She wasn't reacting to rumors. She wasn't responding to indirect comments. She focused on her routines, her businesses, and most importantly, her children. That calm presence signaled something powerful. She had emotionally stepped out of the cycle. Scott, on the other hand, appeared to be navigating unfamiliar territory. without the constant emotional back and forth. He had no conflict to lean on. In previous years, tension almost acted as a strange connection between them. Now, silence replaced drama, and that silence forced self-reflection. At a family event, the shift became obvious. Scott arrived composed, careful with his words and interactions. He avoided attention-seeking behavior and instead spent time engaging naturally with the group. Some family members noticed the effort. Others remained cautious. Kim Kardashian quietly observed the room. Her earlier intervention had created this moment, a reset of expectations. She didn't say much, but her presence alone carried authority. The message was still clear. Consistency matters more than apologies. In a private moment, Kourtney admitted she no longer felt responsible for Scott's emotional stability. That realization felt freeing. For years, she had carried guilt whenever he struggled publicly. Now, she understood that empathy doesn't require self-sacrifice. The conversation shifted toward co-parenting logistics again, but this time the tone was noticeably different. There were fewer emotional undercurrents and more practical discussions. School schedules, activities, travel plans, everything was handled with efficiency. It wasn't cold, it was structured. Scott eventually opened up about how difficult it was to redefine his role. Being integrated into the Kardashian family for so long had blurred boundaries. He confessed that he sometimes confused access with entitlement. That level of honesty surprised everyone. Kourtney acknowledged his growth, but remained steady. She wasn't celebrating prematurely. She had seen change attempts before. What mattered now was sustainability. Behind the scenes, Kim reflected on how stepping in altered her relationship with both of them. In the past, she often tried to stay neutral to avoid escalating conflict. This time, choosing a side, or rather, choosing accountability, strengthened her bond with Kourtney. It also reshaped her dynamic with Scott. The sisters had their own quiet discussion about patterns. They recognized that loyalty sometimes kept them stuck in repetitive cycles. Breaking those cycles required uncomfortable honesty. That realization extended beyond just this situation. It applied to friendships, business partnerships, and romantic relationships across the board. As weeks turned into months, Scott's behavior continued improving in small but visible ways. He avoided situations that previously triggered criticism. He showed up consistently for his children. He communicated directly instead of indirectly. The changes weren't dramatic, they were disciplined. Public perception began shifting as well. Instead of headlines about reckless behavior, conversations centered on growth and accountability. While skepticism remained among some observers, the narrative no longer revolved around chaos. Kourtney's transformation stood out most. She carried herself with a quiet strength that didn't rely on confrontation. In family settings, she seemed lighter, less guarded. That emotional lightness signaled healing. During one emotional exchange, Scott thanked Kim for being direct. He admitted that without that tough conversation, he might have continued drifting without reflection. Kim responded simply, "Growth requires truth." The family dynamic gradually stabilized, but it wasn't identical to the past. It was healthier, more defined. There were clearer expectations and less tolerance for blurred lines. What became evident was that the true turning point wasn't a single argument. It was a collective decision to evolve. Kourtney chose peace. Kim chose clarity. Scott chose accountability. And perhaps for the first time, those choices aligned. The shocking twist that once centered on intervention had now transformed into something deeper: maturity. The chaos that once fueled storylines was replaced with conscious effort. The family learned that love doesn't mean absorbing damage. It means demanding better. As the chapter closed, one truth remained undeniable: growth changes relationships. Sometimes it distances people, Sometimes it strengthens them. In this case, it redefined them. Time moved forward, but the emotional weight of everything that happened didn't disappear overnight. Instead, it settled into something quieter, a new normal that felt unfamiliar but necessary. Kourtney Kardashian was no longer reacting to storms. She was building a life that didn't revolve around them. The most noticeable change was her energy. She wasn't defensive anymore. She didn't feel the need to explain herself whenever Scott Disick made questionable choices. The separation between their lives had finally become real, not just in status, but emotionally. Scott, meanwhile, had entered a phase of quiet rebuilding. The dramatic gestures were gone. No grand apologies. No emotional outbursts. Instead, there were steady actions. Showing up on time. Communicating clearly. Avoiding situations that could undo progress. It wasn't flashy, but it was different. Family gatherings slowly regained warmth. There was still caution in the air, but not hostility. Conversations flowed more naturally. Jokes returned. The heaviness that once defined every shared space began to lift. Kim Kardashian watched the shift carefully. Her decision to intervene months earlier had changed the trajectory of the situation. But she understood something important. Stepping in is powerful, stepping back is strategic. Now that boundaries were established, she allowed space for them to hold. In one reflective moment, Kourtney shared that she finally felt independent from the narrative that once followed her everywhere. For years, her identity in the public eye had been intertwined with Scott's behavior. Now, that storyline felt distant. She wasn't tied to it anymore. Scott admitted privately that losing emotional control in the past had been rooted in fear. Fear of being excluded, replaced, forgotten. But facing those fears without someone rescuing him forced maturity. For the first time, he had to manage his own emotional responses instead of relying on proximity to the family for reassurance. The shift impacted everyone. The sisters noticed that tension no longer dominated group conversations. Instead of discussing damage control, they talked about future plans, business ventures, and personal milestones. Growth had redirected the energy. What stood out most was how differently conflict was handled now. When small misunderstandings arose, they were addressed quickly and directly. No build-up, no emotional explosions. The pattern had changed. Kourtney's confidence deepened. She wasn't cold, she was grounded. She could share space with Scott without absorbing his instability. That balance had once seemed impossible. Scott, aware that trust is fragile, continued demonstrating restraint. He avoided dramatic environments. He prioritized parenting responsibilities. He respected boundaries without testing them. The effort was consistent enough to feel sincere. Kim later reflected that sometimes families confuse history with obligation. Just because someone has been present for years doesn't mean the rules stop applying. That lesson reshaped how she approached other areas of her life as well. Public attention inevitably shifted to other headlines, but within the family, the impact remained significant. The intervention had sparked long-term change, not temporary calm. There was a quiet dinner one evening where the difference became undeniable. Everyone sat together, relaxed, present, unguarded. No tension simmered beneath the surface. No one walked on eggshells. It wasn't dramatic, but it was meaningful. Scott engaged respectfully. Kourtney smiled without hesitation. Kim observed without needing to moderate. It was subtle proof that growth had taken root. The final realization wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about evolution. People can either repeat cycles or break them. This time, the cycle was broken. Kourtney chose self-respect over familiarity. Scott chose accountability over reaction. Kim chose truth over temporary peace. And those choices reshaped everything. The story that once revolved around chaos transformed into one about maturity. The shocking twist wasn't just an intervention. It was the end of a long-standing pattern that had defined their dynamic for years. Life didn't become perfect. Disagreements still happened. Emotions still surfaced. But the foundation was different now. It was built on boundaries instead of blurred lines. In the end, what unfolded wasn't just another chapter of reality television drama. It was a lesson in growth playing out in real time. Change didn't arrive through loud declarations. It arrived through steady decisions repeated daily. A British reality TV personality, who dubbed himself the Lip King because of his obsession with Kim Kardashian, passed away at the age of 32. Jordan James Parks' sister confirmed the TV star's death on Sunday by sharing an emotional statement on social media. Our beautiful, funny, most amazing Jordan James Park passed away, Parks' sister penned. We as a family are numb, shocked, and heartbroken. There will be some unkind messages posted regarding this heartbreaking news, but please, if you knew Jordan, you will know that none of what will be posted is true, she continued. The reality star's sister added, Jordan, we have no words to explain the sadness and heartbreak that we are feeling. You were our best friend, our whole world, our everything. The world feels so empty without you. Park became well known for spending more than £130,000 on cosmetic surgery. He recently talked frankly about having at least 4 nose jobs, a Brazilian butt lift, and many more procedures to look like Kim. It's the whole family I take inspiration from, but mainly Kim. I love their looks and the way they dress. They're just an inspiration, he said in his previous interview.